Everyone keeps saying learn a skill. The best thing you can do for yourself is to learn a skill. Learning a skill will make you financially free. And yes, that actually sounds great. But what people don't talk about enough is that learning a skill nowadays is expensive. Courses are pricey, coaches are pricey, and sometimes after spending all that money, you realize you don't even like the skill as much as you thought you would. You lose interest, you stop practicing, and now you're stuck with something you're not passionate about. Which is why I strongly believe learning online is actually the best option for beginners. It gives you the freedom to try different things and to figure out what you're actually committed to without wasting your time or your money. But here's the other side of it. Learning a skill online can be very overwhelming. There's too much information, there's too many videos to watch, and most times you don't even know where to start. So if that sounds like you, this video is exactly what you need. Because in this video, I'll be sharing the most common mistake beginners make when learning a skill online, how to start without feeling overwhelming, and why learning online is actually one of the best options for beginners. So grab your notes and let's get right into it. Chapter number one, the most common mistakes beginners make when learning a skill online. One of the most common mistakes beginners make is diving in headfirst. You start learning a skill because it sounds good, not because you actually like it. A lot of us choose skills based on hype, what people say, makes money, what sounds impressive, and while there's actually nothing wrong with that, but if there is zero interest, no curiosity, and no passion for that skill, you eventually stop showing up. Not because you're lazy, but because this particular skill was never aligned with you in the first place. Mistake number two, jumping straight into paid courses. Now, this one is very common, and it's actually not because paid courses are bad, but it's because you don't even know if it is something you want to commit to long term. For example, one of the most trending skills right now is ghostwriting. You see the reviews, you see how people share their story of going from broke to financially free because of this one skill. Now, because it actually works for them, they create a paid course for beginners and you jump straight into buying that course. Forgetting that you don't just learn the skills, get clients, and start getting paid. It actually doesn't work like that. You still have to practice your writing, pitch to clients, get rejected, yes, and actually give yourself time to improve. But most people only realize this after already spending the money. That's exactly how people feel discouraged and disappointed. Now, another mistake I've seen beginners make when learning a skill online is consuming too much content and not practicing enough. Now, this mistake can be very smooth. Watching videos can feel productive, especially if it's about a particular skill you want to learn. But lying in bed watching multiple videos back to back is actually not the same as learning. You might feel like you've learned something, but if you're not disciplined enough to actually get up and practice what you learn, you go right back to ground zero. Learning happens when you actually put yourself out there and try even when you're confused and even when you're bad at it. And honestly, if you've made any of these mistakes before, it actually doesn't mean you're behind. It only means just a beginner. And the best part is that all these mistakes can be avoided. Which brings us to chapter number two, how to learn a skill online without feeling overwhelmed. Step one, choose one skill and one focus. The fastest way to overwhelm yourself is trying to learn multiple things at the same time. For instance, you might say something like, I want to learn graphic design, but I'll also learn copywriting at the side. Graphic design will be full time and copywriting will be a side hustle. That way, I'll have multiple streams of income. So I'll commit 2 hours to learning graphic design and another 2 hours to learning copywriting in it. And by the end of the month, I'll be better at both skills. You can already see what's happening here. You're trying to take in too many informations at the same time. And most times, these skills aren't even related. They don't complement each other. That is the fastest way to burn out. And at the end of the day, you don't actually learn anything because learning actually becomes harder and harder to focus. That's very different from saying, okay, I'll commit to this one skill, I'll learn it properly, I'll get good at it, and I'll become confident in it. Then later, you can take the same process you use into learning that skill into another. That second skill can become a side hustle and another stream of income without overwhelming yourself. So choose one skill. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the one you commit to forever. Just one that you're curious enough to explore right now. When you focus on one skill, you give yourself time to actually learn, and that alone removes enough of unnecessary pressure. Step two, lower your expectations. This part is very, very, very important. When you're starting out, your goal is not mastery. Your goal is simply to understand the basics. For example, if you want to learn how to crochet, you don't just jump straight into crochet project. No, you start with the simple basics. You start by learning about the different types of yarn and what each yarn is used for. You learn about crochet hooks, you learn how to read patterns, and this applies for whatever skill you want to learn. If you don't know the basics of a skill, you can go on to ChatGPT and use a simple prompt like, I want to learn dash skill online. What are the basic things to start with? From there, if you see something you don't understand, you can then go on to YouTube and look it up. So continue with our crochet example. You might see terms like chain stitch or half double crochet. If you don't understand it, search it on YouTube and watch a simple tutorial, and now it starts to make sense. Then you move on to the next thing. You learn, you practice, you repeat. And gradually you go from learning the basics to making start to finish project. And again, this works for whatever skills you're learning. That's how you start to gain clarity, and clarity makes things feel lighter. As a matter of fact, you don't need to know everything to be good yet. If you expect yourself to learn fast and be perfect, you feel discouraged very quickly. So give yourself room to actually be a beginner. Step three, pick one main learning topic. One of the biggest reasons people feel overwhelmed is because they consume too much information. As a beginner, you don't need several YouTube playlists, multiple free courses, or be on every learning platform. Pick one main learning source, then you can have a second platform for additional or more in depth information. But there should be that one main source that you go back to every time. Personally, I would recommend YouTube because on YouTube there are so many skills you can learn. And most time you can learn from just one or two good channels. It's actually very important to stick to one or two channels that covers most of what you want to learn, because going through several channels and playlists can easily get you confused. Most of the time, the method person A teaches you is not the same method person B uses. And also, as a beginner, please try to avoid learning on social media such as Instagram or TikTok. What this platform mostly offer are short, fast-paced tutorials, and you don't actually learn anything from those if you're just starting out. You don't really learn much from this platform unless you've gone past the basics and you're very, very disciplined with your learning. Not gonna lie, there are actually some gems on this platform as well. But if you're not careful, you can easily start doom scrolling without even realizing it. We don't want that, okay? So it is better to avoid these platforms at the early phases of your learning. Now, my top external platform aside from YouTube would be ChatGPT. Now, I've noticed a lot of people don't rely on ChatGPT because they don't know the right prompts to use. But honestly, it's actually very simple. I've been using ChatGPT for a while, especially with my learning. And what I've discovered is that you get better responses when you treat it like a teacher or a friend. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it actually works. Simple things like saying please and thank you, asking for more depth, or saying things like think like a professional in that particular field can help you get better responses. With just these two platforms, YouTube and ChatGPT, you can learn so much and go from beginner to intermediate and even to professional if you're disciplined and very consistent with your learning. Step 4, create a small, realistic routine. You need to treat online learning same as you treat physical learning. You can't just say, okay, I'll learn when I feel like it. If you want actual real results, you need a structured routine. And that doesn't have to mean hours and hours. Even 30 minutes or 1 hour is enough in the beginning as long as you're consistent. Now, a simple beginner routine can look like this. You start by learning and going over the basics, watching tutorials to understand things better, then you practice or reflect of what you've learned so far. It doesn't have to be perfect. What matters is showing up regular and consistently actually matters more than intensity. And step five, allow yourself to be bad. This step might feel uncomfortable, but it's actually unavoidable. When you start learning something new, maybe a new skill or a new craft, you're going to be bad at it. You're going to feel slow at it. You're going to look at other people who are already good and wondering why it came easily for them. But what nobody really tells you is that this phase doesn't mean you're failing. It actually means you're learning. A lot of people tend to quit here, not because they're incapable, but because they expected themselves to be good too fast. You'd watch a tutorial and think, okay, I get it. Then you actually try it and nothing looks right. In that very moment, it's very easy to think, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not as passionate as I thought. Maybe I chose the wrong skill. But the truth is, every single person who is good at what they do now also went through this exact stage. Learning doesn't happen when you feel confident. It happens when you keep showing up, even when you feel awkward, unsure, and unready. You have to give yourself permission to be a beginner, permission to make mistakes, permission to not understand everything immediately. Because confidence doesn't come first. Competence does, and competence only comes from practicing. So instead of asking, why am I not good yet? Ask yourself, am I giving myself enough time to learn? You have to be patient with your learning, be patient with yourself, stay consistent, and trust that confidence and clarity will come. Allow yourself to be bad so you can eventually be good. And lastly, chapter number 3, why learning online is actually the best option for beginners. A lot of people think learning online is the cheap option. Like it's what you do when you can't afford classes, mentorships, or paid programs. Wrong. Honestly, learning online isn't just cheaper, it's smarter, especially as a beginner. When you're just starting out, you don't need pressure, you don't need deadlines you didn't choose, and you don't need to spend money trying to prove you're serious. You need space to explore, and online learning gives you that freedom. You can actually start without committing your entire identity to one. You can try, pause, reflect, and adjust without feeling like you failed. Because when you pay for something expensive too early, you subconsciously put pressure on yourself to succeed fast. And when those results don't come immediately, you feel stuck and you feel guilty. Online learning removes that pressure and you actually get to learn at your own pace. You can replay lessons as many times as you need. You can slow down without feeling behind and you can speed up when things finally start to click. Another reason why online learning is actually the best option for beginners is that it allows you to test your interest before you invest. You know, sometimes we think we like a skill until we actually sit down and try to learn that skill. And actually, there's nothing wrong with realizing, okay, this isn't for me. That realization is actually a win and not a waste. And online learning allows you to figure that out without losing interest or money or motivation. It also gives you access to real people and real learning journeys. You're not just seeing the polished results, you're watching people explain how they think, how they solve problems, how they struggled at the beginning. That matters as a beginner. And finally, online learning teaches you a skill that goes beyond the skill itself. That is actually my favorite. It teaches you how to learn, how to research, how to find resources, how to break things down, how to stay consistent without feeling forced. Once you learn how to learn online, you can pick up almost any skill in future and get this and also teach that same skill because you cracked that learning code already, which makes it another stream of income. Don't we all love that? So learning online isn't the backup plan. For beginners, it's actually the perfect place to start. Learning online will always be my go-to because you have more ground on that particular skill. And that also puts you at a higher advantage because you've discovered this is something you're actually passionate about. You understand the basics, you can make from scratch projects, and when you choose to pay for a course, it's probably to learn a new technique. For example, yeah, I like to throw in some examples here and there, just so you can get a clearer picture of where I'm trying to say. So I'm a makeup artist. I don't do that for work anymore, by the way. So I see some physical classes that outline 4 weeks beginner training. And as an aspiring makeup artist, I actually hate to be the one to say this, but you cannot learn how to do a full face of makeup. And the crazy part is that these classes are not cheap. Here is how the 4 weeks is gonna go. You start with the basics, of course, for like a couple of days or a week. Then after that, you start practicing and you have lesser chances to make mistakes because you need to move on to the next step and the next step and the next step so that you can finally do a full face of makeup. There's actually so much rush within this time frame because you're trying to get value for your money. And when that doesn't happen, you feel like it's just something you're not good at. And at the end of the day, you didn't actually get your money's worth. It could have been a different experience if you learned the basic online and started following tutorial and practice. That's where you can know if it's something you're passionate about and if it's something you actually want to do long term. Then when you choose to learn some new advanced skills, now you could opt for a paid course. I wish I had this much understanding about learning online earlier. It would have saved me time, money, and unnecessary stress. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, is that learning online doesn't have to be expensive and it certainly doesn't have to feel overwhelming. You don't need to have everything figured out before you start. You just need curiosity, patience, and consistency. And learning online actually gives you that space to explore, to grow at your own pace, and to figure out what you actually enjoy. So if you're feeling confused or behind about where to start, or discouraged because you tried before and stopped, this is your reminder that nothing is wrong with you. You're just learning. I want you to try again, and this time around, it's going to be better because of this new understanding and knowledge you have about learning online. And if you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe to my channel, and also make sure you don't miss the next one in this series. Yes, this is actually going to be a series where I share everything I know and you need to know to learn a skill easily at the comfort of your home. And in the next episode, I'll be sharing free websites and resources to learn skills online to make your learning journey easier and faster. And also, if you have any questions, drop it in the comments and I'll be sure to get to it. See you in my next video. Bye.